Hello, Java user group Istanbul, and big thanks for the invitation. So I was invited several times, but I try to save time with the travels because too much going on in Java E and MicroProfile space and Frontends as well. So I think it is more time efficient, and I can even reach broader audience with this talk. So yeah, and what I'm actually also doing in projects, I'm applying the ideas from Java E to the front end, and it works great. And and I would like to show you what I'm actually doing right now in my projects with that session. You can ask me questions with Twitter. So Twitter is open and chat is open, and the easiest for me would be if you would use the hashtag airhacks, and the reason is we are using the same infrastructure as my regular question and answer show, so it is everything is set up. Or you can use the built-in chat. It's also possible. So you can ask me whatever, like it should be somehow software engineering or Java related. So I'm a freelancer and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it more and more. A strange thing, and I really like the Java programming language and the JVM. And what I find out since 2015 that the modern JavaScript is really similar to Java, so I also like it a lot actually. And what I'm doing in the backend, I'm removing frameworks and optional libraries. And what I'm doing in the front end, I'm also removing libraries and optional stuff. So I'm doing basically the same in front end and in the backend. Okay, and now what's probably interesting, I'm writing blog posts like usually, like it's like notes to myself, not to forget things. Airhacks.io might be of interest to you because the Airhacks.io are online courses, and the Airhacks TV and Airhacks TV is the question and answer show. And Airhacks FM is my podcast, and I even had our episode with Scott McNeely of Sun, and episode with about Java e-security, for instance. So I have no time for conferences. So what I do with my podcast, I invite people I would like to talk about software engineering with them and record a show. So this is how it works. And this is my mantra. So why I'm still interested in software engineering probably. So learn once, never migrate. So I try to to base my time or to invest time on somehow standards or more stable. And I don't like a lot, to follow any shiny technology. And not only me, also my clients in the enterprise have similar opinions. So so this is the web standards training online, another training online, and another training online, and lots of online trainings. And this is the show. This is a training at Munich Airport. Forgot to mention it. If you like, visit me at Munich Airport. And this is the last slide. So now we can close the resource-hungry PDF viewer and start with lightweight Java E stuff and Java E and front-end stuff. What I will do today, I will use behind the scenes a tool called Browser Sync. This is the only tool I'm using in the front end. This is basically like a HTTP server with reloading capability, so I don't have to hit the refresh button in browser over and over again. Then I plan to use server OpenLiberty. It's also known as WebSphere. Why? Because WebSphere is told to be heavyweight and so forth, and it is not heavyweight at all. And I used OpenLiberty in recent projects, so I'm accustomed to it. Probably I also will use Payara, let's say, because they are running on different ports, so it's easy to start them at the same time. What I also did, I wrote a simple tool, and it is just 5 Java classes. It's actually nothing to do with Java E, but what the tool does is interesting. What it does is you can launch it in a Maven project, and it will search for changes in source main Java. If it recognizes a change, it will pick the POM, build the project, and deploy the war. So I will use it today. So it's less magic than an IDE plugin actually. And for the front end stuff, I will use Visual Studio Code, and probably if time allows, I will also use a very thin library or just a template. It's several hundred lines of code. It's called lit.html, And what I forgot to open is NetBeans. And for editing, I will use the NetBeans, the Apache NetBeans variant, and the current version is 10. So this is what I plan to do today. And so no questions here. Istanbul, live. Okay, this is really live. So at least internet seems to work. So let's see. So now, what I would like to do is to open now my terminal, and I would like to start to set up the microservice first. And this is going to be a Java 8 project and Istanbul JUG, let's call it that way. And what it should do, it should try to fetch from Maven Central the archetype and then create the project. And then I can open it with NetBeans. And by the way, what I could do at the same time, I could start the WebSphere or OpenLiberty. Let's see whether it works. It should. And this is already created. So I have a simple project here, iJUG. And because of laziness, I can start my VAD here. And this would push to Payara. And this is OpenLiberty. What's funny, recently I started to show OpenLiberty, and someone on YouTube, or someone, this was a AirHacks alumni, asked me, is it true that now you switch from Payara to OpenLiberty? And in an OpenLiberty project, I used Payara, and they asked me, is it true that you're switching from OpenLiberty to Payara? So the truth is, I'm using Tommy a lot, Whitefly, Fool. I'm using Payara a lot, and I'm using OpenLiberty a lot. What I'm not using at all is like Whitefly Swarm or Thorntail or Payara Micro, because all of my clients have the larger servers and they are thin and lean and small enough. Okay, so now we can start the WAD. And what it does is it just builds initially the project. And as you can see, it built the project, and the 3 kilobyte thinwar was copied to OpenLiberty, and OpenLiberty found the change and hopefully deployed the project. Okay, you see loaded web module iJUG. So seems to work, and this is also the IP address. So NetBeans is also opened, so this is great. So and I would like to reload that, and we have the iJUG here. Now, what happened so far? The Maven archetype created the simplest possible Java 8 project with the name iJUG, and it should have one resource. Here is it, with the name ping resource, and let's call it, okay, ping is enough, but let's call it a div resource, or yeah, or keep it that way. No one cares. This is I just need a little bit of backend, you know, to start with the front end. So it doesn't really matter what happens behind the scenes. And what I will have to do, I will have to install a coarse filter. And I created a very small coarse filter by myself, and this is called com airhacks JAX-RS. Where is it? JAX. Course, com airhacks course, JAX-RS course, and let's use this version, and the group ID com airhacks. So now we have it, and what happened behind the scenes, we got the course, but it's actually just a single simple class which installs itself. So this is the course filter with the headers. So this is all. And because of Java, there is no configuration, nothing. It just configures itself. Okay, and what I would like also to do is to have one entity with the name ping entity, and this is the name, should be ping, and it has, let's say, 2 attributes, and the ping can have a name and duration is enough, and constructor, and ping, new ping, and I have to save that. And the ping name is iJUG, and the duration is like, I have even no idea what the duration of a ping should be. So we have that, looks good, looks great. And the Open Liberty is a little bit more restrictive than the other servers. So I would like to explicitly set up the media type, and this is application JSON. So I'm producing just JSON. So now let's see whether it works. iJUG, so it deployed. Where's my word? Here it was built several times, 2 failed, the remaining were successful, and we built now 7K with all the dependencies in 3 seconds to iJUG war. So it just builds behind the scenes, which is a nice thing. So I would like to fire up Chrome and see whether it actually works. So let's go here and say 9080, I think 9080. Okay, Open Liberty is running. By the way, I have to have a small tweak which is required for Open Liberty, but it's already reported in the next version. You can skip the slash. But why this? It happened already a lot. So I can go here and say iJUG /resources/ping. So this seems to work. So what we also got, we got metrics from MicroProfile, because most of the application servers are supporting both, and these are the Prometheus metrics. And what we also got, because we have Open API with a schema generated from the ping entity, and what we also got is a nice user interface where we can test this actually whether it works. So try it out, execute, and this is the duration. So we got it for free, and the size of the whole thing is 7K, and it builds and deploys in about 3 seconds. So this is one of the reasons why I have a lot to do with Java EE, because it's a very productive platform. By the way, if you have questions, feel free to ask me. Where are you? Here. No questions, and here are also no questions. So everyone seems to be happy. Now, so we have that. Now, what we could do on top of that, I could, of course, introduce some additional functionality. So just let's do this to show you what's also possible. And for this purpose, I would like to add a MicroProfile dependency. And I could actually use a higher MicroProfile, but we don't really need these 2.0. So we have that. And what I could do right now, I could say I have another class, let's say, and so go here, and let's call it like ping service, or let's call it just network, and the and it just produces pings, ping, and let's say how to call it, execute, and do here a new ping, and the name of the ping is let's say network ping net, and now the number is of course 42. Now we have something new here, and this could be doesn't matter, stateless or yeah, no, let's go with, you can even keep it as a POJO, doesn't really matter. So we have this, and now I can inject the network here at inject and say this is my network, and the network returns this, network returns my ping with execute. And on top of that, so I save everything. On top of that, I could say what I really like to do is, let's say, to have a metric and see how many of such execute operation actually happen behind the scenes. So I can create a counter. So I could say count it, And there is a monotonic thing here. True, it means the counter should always increase. False would be I will actually count how many parallel methods are active, or how many I could create a counter per instance. Okay, so what's the difference right now? Oh, it didn't work. So what's the problem? Clean and build. And build failure without no, this is ping resource, looks good, network, execute, strange. My POM is wrong. So I did something strange there. So let's see. Scope provided. It actually looks good. What's wrong with that? So, and then MP. So now let's keep that. So now it built, so somehow there was a typo or, I don't know, strange character. And stuff happens in live sessions. So let's see whether it actually works. So now I can go here and try it again. So user interface and get, try it out, execute. And what I get back is duration net. So this worked. And now what I also should get is metrics. Metrics application. And I got a new counter with one, and this is a strange format because this is a Prometheus format. So I could plug in Prometheus to it. And then I can also perform the curl. So go here, curl -I, and I get accept application JSON. And and now I got a JSON. And without the application JSON, I get Prometheus. So if I just delete this, that will be Prometheus format. Okay, so now we spent already 20 minutes just talking about Java EE, but I really needed that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to connect with that. And the last test is to check whether it actually works. I forgot to look it up. Get, try out, and execute. What really crucial is we need all the headers. This is these so-called course headers, access control, allow, headers, method, and so forth. So everything is in place. Now we can start with the front end. And the idea again is, as you can see, we have no dependencies in the backend. The build is, there is no plugins, no transformation. It's just, builds the 7K and copies to the server, done. Okay, so now what I would like to do is to create a setup web standards project. So no dependencies, and call it JUG user interface. So, and what should happen now? It opens Visual Studio Code. This is one of the tools what I mentioned. It also opened Chrome, and behind the scenes, browser sync was started on port 3000. So this was most of the tools I mentioned before already there. And the idea would be to create a web component which communicates with the backend and play with it a bit. So this would be the main idea for today. And you can ask me questions. So where are you? But there are no questions. We cannot see the chart monitor at AirHacks.tv. Then send me a Twitter. So Twitter message, this would work because the chat monitor should be actually activated. Okay. And if not, then you can go to Ustream, but you can ask me via Twitter. Okay. Now, this is the browser sync, which automatically started. So what also happened, I created, of course, a small script. At this simplistic. So what it just did, it copied an empty HTML file, an empty style sheet file, and an empty JavaScript file. So that's basically all. And then, so what it means, if I write here hello2 and save, then you will see here hello2. So that's basically all. So now what I would like to do is I would like to start with the development of a web component. And the web component class JUG for Istanbul, of course, extends HTML element, and the HTML element can be registered with the name JUG, and the dash is crucial. And then I can use the JUG here. So now it's registered and ready to go. And let's see whether it actually works. There is connected callback. And the connected callback is something like post construct in Java. And what I can do, I can say I would like to show something. Hey, Istanbul JUG. Great to see you. No, see you. What I'm doing, yeah, see you. Or great to meet you. Meet you. So now it works. So we have this, and now I could go here and say JUG. So, and it seems to work. So it was the simplest possible web component. And now what I could, of course, do, I could say I would like to customize it a bit. And I would like to have here the JUG name, for instance, the JUG name, and this is Istanbul, because if other JUG ask me, for such a session, I could do it. So now it is generic. So let's try that. In this particular case, what I could do, I could use the backticks, which are ES6 templates. And now I could say, instead of that, what I could do, I could say const JUG name equals, let's say, this get attribute. And I think it was JUG, I hope. And this would be $JUG name. And it works, Istanbul. So what it means is if I change it to, what we could do, to Munich, Muk, and Istanbul is Istanbul. But now what I also would like to do is I would like to fetch some data from the server and display it here. So how to do that? So what you could do, we could say I have a method like call server. It doesn't really matter. And in Java, we would write, or in Java E, asynchronous, and JavaScript is shorter. We do the async thing. Now, fetch returns future or promise in JavaScript land. And what I need is, I actually need the URI. And let's try it out of the URI should be localhost 9080 because of OpenLiberty. And now JUG resources /ping, like that. And what I get back is the request, and await means wait until it's done. Perfect. So then I could say from the request, I would like to have my JSON. Const payload done. And then what we can do, we could, for instance, do all the thing here. It's easier. And then say what the server is returning. It returns a ping with name and duration. Okay. So now I would say what I like to have is name and duration, and this technique is called destructuring, because what happens is it extracts the two keys from the object, name and duration, from the payload and creates the variables, or the variables at the same time. So let's try that. Equals payload. Looks good. And now we could do the following. So I can actually go here and say, hey, JAG name, JAG, great to meet you. And then we can even add here, just for fun, the name and the duration. Cool. And of course, you see nothing because even in JavaScript land, we will have to call the function. So let's do this, call server. And it almost worked. Great to meet you, undefined, undefined. And the reason for that is I forgot an await. And now, great to meet you, net 42. Yeah. That's all. So what we implemented, our web component, which communicates with the backend, fetches a JSON, destructs the JSON, and puts it in a template, and the template is displayed to the user. Now let's see whether there are any questions. Where is my Twitter and my chat? Twitter, questions. Why shouldn't I use frameworks? Altuk, hopefully is well pronounced. Is Java reliable enough to meet today's security needs? Reliable. So reliability and security are two parts. So reliability, it is rock solid. So all my project and clients are using Java EE. And security, like authentication and authorization, it really rocks. So we have JSR 375, where it's really easy to introduce identity stores. And actually, we had an episode in the podcast, Airhacks FM, with the spec, one of the spec leads, Ariane Times. And we discussed that. And MicroProfile JSON Web Token, JWT, it is very easy to convert from JSON Web Token to extract from a JSON Web Token the user or the principal, and the groups are converted to roles automatically. And I actually use it all the time in projects. And you could even have, I don't know, you can implement your token-based authentication by your own with JSR 375. And this JSR 375 is just like syntactic sugar, so it's very easy to use it. Okay, and why shouldn't I use the frameworks? Because, for instance, so you actually, the question is who asked the question. So if you are just someone who loves framework or who loves web development and would like to develop an app, just go for it and use frameworks. In my projects, I spend time in enterprises, and enterprises really hate migrations. So and they had migrate, Angular already several times, and now what happened is the web platform evolved. So you don't really need a frameworks. And the cool story with my approach is you don't even need an NPM. So there is no build. You just copy whatever you have on a web server and you're ready to go. In fact, in one of my projects, they struggle a little bit to set up NPM repository properly in an enterprise because of security, proxying, and so forth. And I just delivered the whole project without any NPM build. And they say, why you are not building things? Because we really don't need it. And the cool story is in most enterprises, they can use Chrome as a default browser. So you don't even have to transpile to all the browsers. And if you have time, I wouldn't like to do it right now, but we could try to do this. If I would set up Angular project right now, it would download 30,000 files for an empty app. And Angular follows, for instance, semantic versioning, which basically means every half a year you can have some minor incompatibilities, but you have to care about. And and enterprises don't like to care about, or they are even not able to care about because no providers come and go. Okay, next question. So great audience. What innovation will come about asynchronous programming with Jakarta EE? Well, will come. There is already or Jakarta EE. So we have MicroProfile and Jakarta EE. And the most innovation will come from JDK, Project Loom with fibers. So you can just use them. And this is a little bit off topic. So the question is, should I really hack it for you right now? What I can build for you is with JAX-RS client. For instance, I could implement a reactive JAX-RS client. I actually did it somewhere on the YouTubes. It comes out of the box. RX is a part of Java 8, so it's not even Jakarta, it's an old spec. You can use asynchronous communication with the client. I could really easy convert it to fully asynchronous pipeline. How this would work, it would look like this. I could go here and say suspended async response. This doesn't make sense here because there is nothing to be executed asynchronously. Response resume, and this is like non-blocking I/O. So this is also available for ages. Resume this one. And of course, what I could do, response should be, I could also say I would really like to have a resource with managed executor service, MES, and then I could create my own pipeline. So I could say, then I would like to do the following: completable future, supply async, and then say I would like to do this first. So let's go ahead. This, and if it's ready, then accept, then do this, and then make it a little bit leaner. And then say response. For instance, I can specify timeout even on this. Let's say once day is a little bit too long, time unit, and this can be seconds. And now I get after 1 second 503, so the connection is cut. I could specify timeout handler to specify my particular need. And this is the asynchronous communication or asynchronous behavior from JAX-RS. The same is available, a little more is available with JAX-RS client, and with MicroProfile on top of that. I could actually say here where is it? The network execute here is counted monotonic, and it can't be a bulkhead with the concurrency of 2. So what this means is there will be never more than 2 concurrent requests, and if there are going to be more than that, then I would like to have a fallback method called overload. Overload. And the method is called then. This is like fallback method, overload. Return a new ping. Let's say here overloaded and 13. So I would say it is actually what I do in projects. Actually, I'm deleted all the asynchronous call and make it synchronous again, because usually we don't have such scalability requirements, and synchronous call is simple. And I would say just 10 at most 10% of all projects have the need to be fully asynchronous. All others could be are just a better database browsers. So yeah. And hopefully it still works. So let's see. Where is my browser? Is here. And does it work? Yeah, it still works. Perfect. And what's interesting, it works. And what I could do, I can go here and say 9080 iJUG metrics application. And what I got, as you can see, I got on top of that the metrics for the bulkhead pattern and for the fallback, how many fallbacks were called and so forth. And fallback is there, circuit breaker is there. And what this basically means is you can use now Java and MicroProfile instead of Hystrix, because Hystrix was discontinued by Netflix. So there's actually, you could always use Java and MicroProfile, but right now, if you have to migrate, you can migrate to MicroProfile. Okay, so let's see. Great questions. Wow, even more questions. Okay. Is there a graceful way to run integration tests on Java EE? And Java is perfect for integration tests. And I recorded a whole show called Java EE testing. So I wouldn't like to spend too much time on that. So Java EE testing, yeah. Java EE testing is the show just about testing. So just go there, and there are a whole workshop, I think 50 episodes about Java EE testing, and just without coding. What we always do, persistence, create entity manager, and entity manager factory, create entity manager, and you can test your persistence in unit tests. You can do the same with bin validation. And for system tests, we are using JAX-RS client. And this basically it. So we don't really need Archillion or CDI unit to start the application server. So you can start parts of the application server. Cool. Perfect. So let's go ahead to this again. So we implemented that. And now the question is what we also can do, because in one point of time we get, 5,000 lines of code in a single JavaScript class. So what you also can do, I could create a class called message service. And this class export default message service will just provide a method. I always forget the class, interestingly. So now let's say message, and this is return hello in Istanbul. I wanted to write integration test because of the question. So hello Istanbul, and now I can activate the modules here. Script type equals module, and then my message service or my app can import it was message service from message service JS, and I can say here, we can have constructors as well. So constructor, but if you are in a web component, you always have to call super. And then I can say this service equals new message service. For all Java developers, what you hopefully see right now is not that different to Java code without any framework. So it exactly looks what you did in Swing 10 years ago, which is a very good news because it's very easy to learn, which is highly appreciated. And yeah, now what I would like to do is to integrate it, of course. Let's do it here. So I will just go here and say this service message, I think. And it doesn't work. Why not? Because I shouldn't use that. And now it works. So I used recently, I imported several methods, and then you have to use the curly braces. If you are working with the default, you don't have to use the curly braces. And now it works. Hello Istanbul, meet you net. So it is almost like, artificial intelligence, language. Okay. See, is Jakarta EE MicroProfile an alternative to Spring Boot? Alternative? I mean, I don't think so, because Java EE and MicroProfile have Java EE, Jakarta EE and MicroProfile have complete different philosophy than Spring Boot. For instance, where is my thing here? The philosophy of Java EE is to have thin wars and larger servers. And in Spring Boot, there is no server. So there's complete different philosophy, because in Spring Boot, you would build your server by yourself with best of breed APIs. And in Jakarta, you would say, I just pick one application server and focus on business logic, and you don't care at all about all the dependencies behind the scenes. So I don't think it is an alternative to Spring Boot, whereas we can use profile. Now, Spring Boot is a complete different framework, which has nothing to do with MicroProfile Jakarta E. You could, of course, use MicroProfile instead of Spring Boot completely, or you could use Drop Wizard instead of Spring Boot or another framework, but they are actually not comparable. The code is comparable, so the injection and so forth is comparable, but the thinking behind is completely different. And yeah, cool. So the question to you, Istanbul, is would you like to see more frontend or backend? Because you're asking me about backend technology and you wanted to see frontend. So we can, so what's not next? Where we can find good documentation about Java EE MicroProfile like Spring website. Like Spring, I have no idea about the Spring website, but what I can show you is the following. Let's not tutorial. Let's see JPA. What they did. So first, Open Liberty JPA tutorial. They don't call it tutorial. They call it like they have, let's see, JSON Web Token JWT MP. This could be interesting. Yeah, and this is the tutorial, but it doesn't look like this. They have guides, not tutorials. This is what I wanted to see, the guides. And this is just Open Liberty. And as you can see, they have millions of guides to whatever thing you would like to be. You ask me about the yes, Java API, MicroProfile API, the MicroProfile guides for different versions. And there is a Java 7 tutorial. There is a Whitefly guide. So there's a lots of documentation. But my personal source, how I implement this stuff is, I take a look at the PDFs which come with Java 8, and you will get them from JCP. And what you get there is the API implementation, which is good enough. And Java EE is actually extremely simple. So what you need, most of the project is add inject. And if you have database, then you need a JPA tutorial. But Java persistence, if you search for that, for instance, you get the Java persistence API 2.2 download page, and you have the tutorial. And if you need JAX-RS, download the JAX-RS. And these PDFs are actually extremely well written. So, and this is the truth which all application server implements. And the guides called not tutorials on Open Liberty are also very good. Okay, now, so like Spring website, so I don't think this is comparable. I never, yeah. Okay, so I hope we clarified that. Now back to code here. So we have our, what do we have it? We have the message service, which was imported. The ES6 modules are now running in browser. What I also forgot to mention is that I'm using Chrome, but what's also great is what happened is the following. This MDN fetch, for instance. So if you do this, you get to the come to the fetch API of the Mozilla Developer Network, but the Mozilla Developer Network is no more just a Mozilla website. Microsoft, Google, Samsung, and who else? Microsoft, Google, Samsung. I think Opera and of course Firefox, Mozilla committed that this is the canonical resource how the web platform is documented. So you'll find documentation on the Mozilla website for all the web APIs, which is really great for Java developers because they have single source of truth. which is not true with frameworks, web frameworks. So this is what also Java developers seem to appreciate. Okay. So let's see. So we can kill this. What we can also, okay, this is, okay, the browser. And now let's see. No questions, no questions. So we implemented that, and I would say we have, how much time do we have? 10 minutes. Then let's play a little bit with CSS, I would say, and skip the lit HTML part. And what I would like to do is to create here some more text, and I have the main tag. Then of course you will always need a header, you will need a article or section, you will need a nav, and this is actually completely wrong. Article, nav, and at the very end a footer. So this looks good, and this Istanbul JUG should be within the article. Okay, looks good. And the nav should be navigate. Navigate, footer should be goodbye. And the header is hello. Now, to make it a little bit more interesting, I will just add some colors. Header, footer, and nav is background, light, see something, and the I also need the article, background, light, gray, perfect. And the main itself can be height 100 viewport height, and display grid, and so it's already full page, and body is margin can be, let's say, 0 pixel, and now it looks a little bit more appealing. So this is a grid CSS layout, and what I can do, I can name them properly. Header, usually I would call it not header, rather than, let's say, status or something like this, but for now it is way easier to call it as the tag, but this is not what should happen in real world. And grid area, so I'm just giving names, and this is grid area article. Okay, looks good. And now, oh, looks bad, but now let's fix it. So a grid template areas, and what I can say is the following. I would like to start with the header, and then have nav article, and then have footer twice. So, and now this is my basic structure. And then I can say this grid template rows, it would be 1 fraction unit, 4 fraction unit, and 1 again. So it looks a little bit better. And the columns would be 1 fraction unit and 4 fraction units, let's say. So now it looks like this. But the cool story is, having that, I could actually say I would like to have the nav going through and also going here through. And by the way, what you can also do, I could say I would like to have, I think Istanbul is the, let's call it default background, and this is going to be red. And what I can do now, I could say the background here is var default background, which is red. But I could say the fallback, what was it? It was like, forgot about that. The fallback is light green, let's say. So if there is no red, it is fallback to light green. But what this kill, you know, all CSS preprocessors, and I can go with that here, 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 and it looks beautiful. Oh, it completely screw up the screen. Let's say here blue. So now we fix that. But and if I just misspell it, or it makes it's undefined, so it falls back to the light something colors. Okay, so what this is called CSS properties, and you are allowed to define whatever properties you like. It doesn't have to be, you know, just colors. It can be a more complex CSS structure, and apply the CSS properties to background, for instance. So, and what I showed you right now, it was this beautiful service page application, is that you don't need a lot. You don't need a lot, you know, to implement and service SPAs. What I completely skipped is using more evolved templates and stuff like that. But so what you would like to do is what I did here was this with the ES6 template editor is a little bit dangerous in the real world, because you could, you know, have CSS, not here, but with inner HTML, you could have JavaScript injection, which is bad for the security. But you could use, for instance, here lit HTML. Okay, so now let's see. Wow, many questions. No idea what this means. Hopefully, it's so. If you and the question is from if you start today a new app with user interface component like JSF, what tech stack will you use from bottom up, from database to web interface? 5 years ago, I go with Java, Spring, Hibernate, Prime Faces. So first, the question is what you would like to have in a user interface. Is it more like form-based application or more like completely interactive, you know, single-page application? But starting from the backend, as default, I would use Postgres database. As a service, I would use because I saw it is very productive, developer like it. I would choose Tommy, OpenLiberty, Whitefly, or Payara, but I wouldn't use anything which is application server specific and go with straight Java EE for the boring stuff. For the monitoring metrics, asynchronous behavior, I will use MicroProfile. It is built in actually to all major application servers. Then we have that. And front-end Prime Face is still great, you know, Chatai, probably also a not attendee, but member of the Java user group Istanbul. So Prime Face is still ultra productive. The problem with Prime Face is it's really hard to implement with Prime Faces offline apps. So for this purpose, I would choose web components, what I did right now, with CSS, just web standards. And web components you get from Prime Faces Elements, I think is the name, or Vadin components. So both great sources for more complex web components. Okay, now the questions. What are the main advantages of this front-end approach over Angular React? So I understand React. So React is, I use React a lot. Great framework. And React has a huge advantage with React Fiber to be very, I would say, very fast with rendering. But what we usually use on top of that is the lit HTML, which wouldn't make any difference right now. It would be very, very similar. But with lit HTML, what it does is like virtual DOM without virtual DOM. So lit HTML is able to compute the diffs, the changes, and apply it automatically on the DOM. It's crazy fast without consuming more memory. Then and Angular. I don't know whether you saw Angular new, this Angular NG, not the Angular. I actually like the Angular one, Angular JS, but the new Angular, for this particular example, I will have to create a module, import into the module an HTTP component, expose the HTTP component, use RxJS to fetch the request, which is not responsive at all. Having said that, for every new component, I will probably use command line interface. We generate source code because for each new component, you will have to touch, I think, 2 or 3 places. And the main problem is you will have to learn a completely proprietary framework. And I would say Google is not very famous to stick with the frameworks. So I would say they killed a lot of stuff. And React is a different story. So I like a React. So if you like, you could use React. But still, web components with lit HTML don't feel that different to React. And for me, no framework is the best framework. Why I should use framework when the standard is that far? So which popular JS library do you recommend using with Jakarta EE? You don't need any JS library, but what I use usually in all major projects, I use it's called lit HTML. And this lit HTML, where is the page? Is this? It basically looks almost identical what I did before. It is based on a standard function called HTML and render. They're actually both. And what they do, they properly escape, the contents or cross-site scripting attacks are impossible. And what they also do, they calculate the changes, or they only apply changes to DOM elements which really changed. And what's also nice is you can really very easy attach listeners to buttons and text fields. So this is what I suggest you. Of course, how it's called 3DS or D3JS, I think. Yes. Data-driven documents are a great library if you really have to to draw charts. So this is great, and Moment.js is also what I would suggest sometimes, because if you have to do a lot with dates, this is like Joda time in Java, but there is a new standards on horizon. It's called something like with date or time, which will look almost like the modern Java 8 time. This is what I suggest, and this is actually the only libraries I use. So, and because we have ES6 modules, I don't even need npm. You can install, for instance, so to install the lit HTML, what I would do, I would just go here and lit npm -i lit HTML. I think this is what should happen, and we'll make there. Wait a second. Make the lit, and here npm -e lit HTML, and it should pull now the dependency from the internet. So done, and this is really tiny and useful library. And actually, to install that, what I only need is to copy the thing into the project called iJUG user interface. Yes, source, and copy lit HTML to here. And where is my client? The client is here. And I have lit HTML. So now I can use it. So in order, let's say we would like to rewrite this to make lit HTML. So now I can go here and say import HTML and render from lit HTML And I think this basically was, So lit HTML. Oh, this was wrong. No, lit HTML. Yeah, done. And then I could say the following. This is the template. Const template. And I would prepend HTML. And now I get even code completion in Visual Studio Code here. So syntax highlighting. And then I would say I would like to render. This is the other function. And I actually forgot. Wait a second. Render the template into the container, and the container is the component itself. And with a little bit of luck, it should already work. So where is it? Yeah, it still works with lit HTML. And the cool story right now is with lit HTML is the following. Where is my? So a second. So this is my one. Oh, this is what I need. I need this browser. So let's do it again. Split the screen now. And the cool story with that is now I'm in the full power here, and I could say the following. I would like to have, let's say, H2 and say hello. So this is not very impressive, of course, but I could have a button, click. And now I can say add click equals $, and say, this is not $, and say this clicked, and here clicked console log clicked. And if I click that console, you see that it actually works. So with lit HTML is very easy. And what we did, we install lit HTML right now. And the question is, what happens in case, this is also from Google, a library. This is an excerpt from the Polymer framework. And Polymer was used, for instance, to implement YouTube. And but let's say if Google drops lit HTML, there's another library called HyperHTML. It looks very similar, so I'm not stuck with a framework, with a single framework. Okay, so now we even install lit HTML, and this is one of the libraries I would choose. Now let's see whether you have any additional questions. There are no additional questions. We are over time anyway, so I would say thank you for watching. I really enjoy it, and thanks for the great questions. If you have any questions left, join the regular AirHacks TV. It works exactly like this, but it's not a JUG event. So I gather questions, the whole month, and then answer all the questions at once. And the deal is, don't ask me any questions via email. I won't answer them. I will only answer the questions via AirHacks TV. And if you like it, I recorded several online workshops about these topics, airhacks.io, or come to Munich's airhacks.com. So thank you for watching, and bye.